Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 319. Today we are talking all about sibling challenges and uneven needs. So we talked a little bit about homeschooling multiple different neurotypes last week. Today we're going to talk about some of the ramifications that come along with that, especially when we're dealing with fairness versus sameness and the squabbles that come with raising different kinds of kids in your home. Before we begin, though, a quick special shout out to CTC Math as usual to thank them for sponsoring this podcast and for making my own life easy when it comes to math. Check them out at ctcmath.com if you're looking for a math program for your kids, or go over to the show notes for this episode and click through that link for a special offer. I'll tell you a little bit more about that offer and about CTC Math later on in today's episode. So let's get on with it. Pop those earbuds in and let's get on with today's show. Hey friend, welcome back to Raising Lifelong Learners. Today we're talking all about something that comes up regularly in conversations about neurodivergent homeschooling and family dynamics at some point, especially in coaching sessions or in conversations inside the Learners Lab. And it's something that I've struggled with as well, as have so many different people and families that I've talked with. And that's sibling conflict. More specifically, though, we're talking about what happens when kids look around the family and say, that's not fair. He gets this, or you're spending more time with her, or whatever it ends up being. But that whole it's not fair kind of conversation comes up. And honestly, they're not wrong. Sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes you are spending more time with one kid over another. One child might need more help during a season or during a specific type of subject. One child needs more or gets more accommodations than another. One child has different expectations because their brain wiring requires a different set of outcomes in order for them to be deemed successful. One child gets more breaks while another child is expected to power through because they're capable of doing it. And then sometimes, and in some seasons, one specific child is getting more attention than others. And this is particularly true when you have multiple kids with different neurotypes and neurodivergences. We talked about different neurotypes in homeschooling, multiple types of brain wiring within the same family last week. So if you didn't get a chance, go back and take a listen to that episode. But when you're homeschooling gifted, twice exceptional, ADHD, autistic, anxious, dyslexic, sensory sensitive, or otherwise neurodivergent kiddos, those differences can feel enormous. The injustices are felt and talked about by all. It's actually quite a common neurodivergent trait, particularly for kiddos who are gifted, to identify and be really concerned with justice as well as injustices. And so them seeing somebody be treated differently than them is immediately perceived as an injustice and causes some kind of reaction or backlash or meltdown. And you need to, as a parent, be aware of what's causing the reaction, but then also be cognizant of the fact that it really is true that fair isn't equal in a given situation. And that's one of the conversations that I want to have throughout this episode, is that fair doesn't mean equal. And my kids will roll their eyes at that statement. And probably my oldest, who will be editing this, he is my podcast editor. Everybody say hi, Trevor. He will be rolling his eyes as he edits this section of the podcast because he has heard that statement for as long as he can probably remember because it's absolutely true. In a neurodivergent household, fair isn't equal. What is fair for one child is not necessarily fair for another, particularly when they are dealing with a lot of stuff. And so we're going to talk about some strategies to talk with our kids about that. That said, none of these strategies are magically going to make any of those feelings of injustice go away. Your kids are still going to feel how they're going to feel, and it's up to us to validate those feelings, explain as best we can the reasons behind the seeming inequitability, and help them understand that this is just how it is. We need to give them a fair education, a fair parenting experience, and a fair childhood. And that fairness is determined by their abilities, their needs, their desires, their passions, their interests, and their future goals and potentials. Parents often tell me that my kids constantly compare one another to each other. They compare themselves with the other people in their family. Or one child thinks the other is getting special treatment. Or everyone wants exactly what their sibling has. Or I spend all day explaining why things are different and I'm just exhausted. It's a kind of running joke in our family between the siblings that one of my particular kids is the favorite. And they're not. They are loved as much as all of the other kids in my family. They just have, for many years, had activities, hobbies, passions, and interests, along with future goals that have taken us out of the house a lot over the last 2 or 3 years for additional coaching experiences, additional classes, additional intensives, and things like that. Whereas if we rolled back time, there was a period where another one of my children got all of the attention, and not only was a lot of the attention directed at that particular child, which was a different child from the one they currently believe is my favorite. And it was because they needed lots and lots of different therapies. But what happened as a result of needing those different therapies was that all of our activities were organized around that particular child's needs. We joined a co-op because that child needed more social time. We joined a play group, which met at playgrounds every other week for informal get-togethers and play. And then on the opposite weeks, we met for field trips. And that was for different types of socialization within a safe setting so that we could go back to the therapists and talk about what we were observing in those situations so that the occupational therapists and the mental health therapists and the physical therapists could all be working in conjunction with that child on skills they needed to grow and improve for those different types of situations. And that child today is a very different person than they were then, and than they probably would have been if I had been unable to dedicate that time. And that's not to say that the other kids didn't benefit from those relationships and those groups. In fact, one of my kids is still best friends with a child they met through one of those groups. Another one of my kids has some fond memories and meets up with a couple of the younger kids. They were much younger and didn't really form deep friendships because of their age at the time, but still can pick up where they left off with some of the kids if we get together, which is very random now. But there are different seasons. And then if you go even further back, there was a time when everything was driven by my oldest. Anything he needed or wanted, the others just came along for. And so that was a time of multiple years where we structured everything that we were doing as a new homeschool family around what that particular child needed. And so it's true that things don't seem fair or equitable or even just at different times in their life. And if my kids had been more aware of what was going on and more able to articulate what they were observing and feeling way back when my oldest was driving the train, they would probably say that was my favorite child, just like the period of time when everything was centered around the therapies and the activities and the needs that my other child had, they would say that one was. And the most recent memory they have is me spending a lot of time with the one that needed extra coaching and extra activities outside the home. And so even those of us who know what is going on in the brain and why it's going on and what the needs are, and make a career out of trying to understand the brain, which I don't think anyone can ever fully understand the brain because it's such an enigma. It's so incredible and there's so many things going on. But those of us who are attempting to make sense of all the different types of wiring, we are not immune to the that's not fair conversation in our home, particularly when we too are homeschooling neurodivergent kids. So if you've ever found yourself trying to convince your kids that everything's fair, or you really don't have any favorites, or you're doing the best that you can while secretly wondering or even believing that you're completely messing things up, this episode is really for you. We're going to talk today about why sibling conflict is so common in neurodivergent families, the difference between fairness and sameness, how uneven needs can create tension, how to stop becoming the family courtroom judge. It's just not something you need to be spending a lot of time in. Have a couple quick answers, even if that elicits eye rolls in your kids, and let it go, because the truth is kids are experiencing what they're experiencing in the way that they're experiencing it, and you can't control how they feel about that. You can control your reactions to how you're behaving in as a result of what they're saying and what they're believing and doing. And so you just need to have your tools at hand so that you can combat those discussions as they happen. And then some practical scripts so you have words at your fingertips and can start using them today when this conversation comes up. Sibling conflict isn't necessarily a sign something is wrong. It's completely and totally normal. And not only is it completely and totally normal, but sometimes it's a sign that your kids are learning how to live alongside people whose needs are different from their own. And that's a life skill worth teaching. It's very important for them to understand that other people have needs too, and that their needs are just as important as your needs. And there needs to be a place where you meet in the middle. Or sometimes there's a place where you need to meet the person who has different needs than you, where they are as they're struggling, and be able to adjust to what they need through their struggle so they can get on the other side of it, and so that they're able to be there for you when you're struggling. So why do neurodivergent families experience more fairness conflicts? Let's start by just normalizing something first. Many neurodivergent families experience more sibling tension than they expect, not because their kids are mean, not because the parenting they're doing is wrong, but because differences are more visible. It's a lot more difficult to hide or equalize specific needs when they are unbalanced towards one kid over another, when those needs involve therapies or coaching sessions or extra classes or remedial classes or play groups or any kind of different than the norm experience. And so we just have to work within the visible differences and help our kids understand that even when the visibility is not there, it's still not completely equitable and fair. Imagine if you're a kiddo and you're in a family that has multiple siblings, even if it's only one other. We have 4 in our family, and one of those kids gets extra time to get their work done, and you're very patient with them and easing them into it and saying, okay, I know you didn't finish that today, but we'll pick it up where we left off tomorrow. While another needs you to be sitting right next to them to get them started on their work, and another, you tell what they need to do and send them off on their own, and then check in with them in an hour and say something like, I can't believe you're not done yet. Come on, you need to start focusing and get it done. And then another child has fewer math problems to complete in order to show mastery than one of their siblings. Or another child gets sensory breaks and every half an hour gets to go outside and jump on the trampoline while other children have to stay inside. Other children see, wait a second, or I had to do all 20 problems, or I had to write mine when mom wrote yours for you, or I didn't get a break, I just had to keep pushing through till I got it done. This is especially true in families who have kids that are gifted and have ADHD, or are gifted and dyslexic, or are autistic and also have some other kind of neurodivergence, or have multiple different neurodivergent kids within their families, because the discrepancies are there. And as we've talked about on this podcast before, asynchrony is real. And when we're dealing with any kind of neurodivergence, but particularly giftedness, the asynchrony, the nonlinear learning is taking place. You could have kids who are very advanced in one area and remedial in other areas. And so that for sure does not look equitable to the other kids who are observing from outside. Needs become highly visible in those scenarios. And kids are naturally wired to monitor for fairness. That's that sense of justice. It's definitely more honed in some than others, and gifted kids have a very strong sense of justice. Typically, I guess if you've met one gifted kid, you've met one gifted kid, but a lot of them have a strong sense of justice. The problem, though, becomes how kids define fairness. And it's typical for our kids to define fairness as everyone gets the same thing, but adults know that's not actually how life works. Children often don't, especially when emotions are involved. And so that's where we need to focus our attempts at educating them and teaching them about differences and different needs, which again is why having simple statements that you can just say are helpful, but not necessarily stuff your kids like to hear. And that's why I still get those eye rolls with fair doesn't mean equal. That's one of the things I say all the time. And my kids occasionally, especially my adult kids, say that mockingly to me. But it's true. Fairness is not the same as sameness. This might be the single most important concept in the episode today. Many families accidentally teach that fairness is sameness. And it's natural for kids to think that it's fair that he got 2 and I got 2 pieces of candy. It's fair that we even out the Halloween candy that was collected if you celebrate Halloween. But the thing is, fairness is actually everyone getting exactly what they need in order to be the most successful versions of themselves. I often use this example, and it's actually a stereotypical example, and it floats around the internet in all sorts of memes and images and whatever, but it's the image. So picture this in your head if you've seen it before, and if you haven't, just try to create this visual. 3 kids are standing near a fence trying to see over it. One of those kids is very tall and can easily see over it without any adjustment. One is of average height and their eye level is just below the fence line, and one is very short. If everyone gets the same step stool, that tall person is going to be able to see way over the fence, right? The child of average height is going to just be able to see over the fence successfully. And then the child who's very short is still not going to be able to see over the fence because the box that they are given to stand on, or the step stool that they are given to stand on, is the same as everybody else's and is really tailored to the average height person. And so too often our discipline, like our disciplinary actions in our home, our rules, our education system for sure, is geared towards that average, that middle. So the really tall, the outliers in the abilities or height or age or whatever, are continuing to be able to be successful and more successful because just a little bit of support goes a long way when they're already very abled. And then that average is getting what they need to use any resources that come their way with relative success. Not too much more, but not anything less. They're getting just exactly what will help them be successful in that moment. while the below average or the struggling person, whether that's height in this example, or cognitively disabled, or has a learning struggle, or has an attention challenge, or a sensory challenge, or is autistic, or has ADHD, or whatever, they are going to continue struggling even with the support that was given, because the support is not proportionate to their need. And so it's in the example of that box, it's the same box or the same step stool. That's sameness. But it doesn't help everyone see because it's not fair. Fairness means giving each child what they need and what's going to help them most access the experience that they're trying to access, whether that is education, sports, just being an everyday participant in the world. Some need more support. Some needs fewer demands. Some need different tools, and some need different expectations. And here's the hard truth that we need to help our families understand is that sometimes fairness can feel unfair from the outside looking in, especially when it comes to siblings, because siblings are so in each other's pockets, right? Especially when they're homeschooling. So they see every little thing. But what they don't see and can't see completely accurately is the internal world, internal thought processes, internal struggles that their siblings are facing. So while they may be able to understand to a degree what their siblings are going through, especially if you're dealing with multiple different neurodivergencies in your home, they can't still completely understand the exact processing that goes through. You may have a child who just melts down and blows up when things don't go the way that they expected it to. And they need prepping beforehand. While another child is next to them like, dude, you're making a big deal out of nothing. But they don't have the same emotional intensity and connection to all of the different feelings that are being felt. They are a little bit more distant or distanced from their emotions, or may have better emotional regulation skills at that particular moment. Whereas you may have somebody who struggles in math and really can only get through one 15-minute lesson in CTC math, which is what we use and you're going to hear about in just a minute, while another one excels in math. And it is absolutely fair to expect that child to do 3 lessons a day because they have the ability to accelerate and get through higher level math at an earlier time in their educational process. That's still fair. One person doing 1 math lesson a day with support and the other sibling doing 3 lessons a day independently. So fair isn't equal, and it could look unfair from the outside looking in, but we still need to stick with what is fair and most appropriate to giving our kids individually the resources and supports that they need in order to be the most successful versions of themselves. And then the challenge comes in when we need to help our kids, the other kids, understand that. So why do these comparisons even happen, right? Here's the thing. It feels like our kids are so smart, they should just be able to get this. Or this is ridiculous. They know their sibling struggles in this specific area, and so they know that they need more support. Why are we comparing ourselves and trying to make sure that we're getting exactly the same thing? Comparison is completely normal. It's developmentally normal for all kids. And then we have asynchronous learning and asynchronous development in some of our gifted kids and our neurodivergent kids. And that means that socially and emotionally, they may be developing at a slower rate than same age peers. And so that's why, while you would expect your 13 to 15 to 17-year-old to understand that your 12 to 14 to 16-year-old needs a little bit more support because of their neurodivergent issues, they may still not be able to, because socially and emotionally, they may be several years behind that. And so developmentally, they're still caught in that prefrontal cortex development area of insecurity and comparing themselves to others and trying to fit in and make everything feel just and equitable. Developmentally, normal is just normal. Kids naturally ask, who got more, who got less, who got attention, who got help, what did I get in comparison to those? But neurodivergent families often create more opportunities for comparison because accommodations are very visible. One child might get headphones or movement breaks or flexible work while the siblings are thinking, hey, I want to wear headphones too, or I want to move around. I want to go jump on the trampoline and do flips every 15 minutes. So why can't I have that too? What they're really asking, without always understanding that this is what it comes down to, is, don't my needs matter too? And so that question, honestly, it deserves attention. And they can't always articulate that to you or to me. And so we need to be looking under the surface level to see what's motivating the frustration that they have in comparing themselves and in deciding that things are unfair or unequitable. And it could potentially, and in all likelihood, be distilled down to that question, don't what I need matter? Don't my needs matter too? Doesn't what I need matter? And it's really important to give that the question the attention that it deserves, because many sibling conflicts aren't about the accommodation or about their like or dislike for one another or about their competitiveness towards one another. It's about belonging. And we want our kids to feel as if their family is their safe space and that they truly belong. And so listening to the undercurrents and underlayings is really important in this particular case and can be quite challenging. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's an easy fix, because every new season of life that your kids go through and that you go through as a parent, because remember, this is your first time parenting too. You're a new parent with every new experience that comes to you. You should not expect yourself to know intuitively at every single moment for every single situation that comes to you what exactly to do, because this is your first time parenting as well. It's my first time parenting a 23, 18, 16, and 13-year-old. It's not my first time parenting any of those children, but it is my first time parenting in those very different, distinct, and specific stages. We've got one approaching his onset of puberty. He's not quite there yet, but close. We're starting to see some signs, and it's his first time. He's going to experience it differently than his 3 siblings did. It's my first time parenting a child of 16 who volunteers regularly outside the home and works regularly outside the home and is dropped off a lot, because my last 16-year-old that I had was involved in a lot of different things outside the home, all of which were longer drives that required me to stay there, because by the time I went back, there was no point. I just have to turn around and make the return drive. And so I was on the road a lot. Now I'm making quick drop-offs sporadically throughout my day, and then coming back and having an hour to 3 hours to kill to get some things done in a disjointed fashion before having to go back and get that one. It's my first time parenting a rising college sophomore. It's a very different experience than parenting a rising college freshman or a graduating senior who is planning to go into college right away. It's my first time parenting an adult child who's living at home and building a business of his own while taking business classes online, or not online, a community college with the idea to transfer at some point. So we're all learning and we all just want to belong, but we need to adjust, get to the bottom of what our kids are asking, help them see that they have a very real place within our family. And it might look different from year to year, and it might not always feel fair or equitable, but it is, while it's not necessarily the same, it is fair. And you, mom who is listening, like me, mom who is speaking, are doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have about parenting at this given moment, because it's our first time through this season too. So I've been using CTC Math for years now, and I have to say, one of the things I love most about it is its adaptability. CTC gives you access when you subscribe to all of their levels. You get access immediately to grades kindergarten through calculus. So it's perfect for kids who have an asynchronous learning profile, meaning they are many different ages at once, because sometimes concepts will come really quickly for asynchronous kids, and sometimes they'll come a little bit more slowly. But CTC, having all of those levels up front, right at your fingertips, allows your kiddos to work at their own pace. If they understand something and they get the concept super quickly, they can accelerate through it and do multiple levels in one day, sometimes even getting through multiple grade levels in a school year. And then when they hit some of the more challenging math and maybe it's not as intuitive for them, they can slow down and they can take a little bit longer. It is perfect for neurodivergent families, especially those who are homeschooling asynchronous and or gifted kiddos. If you're looking for a new math program for your family and you're looking for one that is easily tailored to the kids that are in your home, the learning profiles you currently have, and it's completely affordable, one price for all grade levels for all of your family and kids, and comes with a money-back guarantee and people who really truly care about your kids learning their math, you need to check out ctcmath.com. Now, you could either go over straight to ctcmath.com and check it out, or you could head over to the show notes for this episode or in the description on your favorite podcast app and click through that. When you click through that, it automatically applies a special offer that CTC has just for Raising Lifelong Learners listeners, and I'd hate to have you miss out on that if you were purchasing. It's a great deal. It's actually the deal that we use too, because I do subscribe and pay for my subscription. I've been a customer of CTC Math for close to a decade now, and I still pay for my subscription. And I'd love for you to be able to take advantage of the same offer. So check them out, ctcmath.com, or head over to the show notes at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast and click on the CTC link through there, and it will automatically apply the special discount that it has for Raising Lifelong Learners listeners. All right, let's get back to today's episode. All right, welcome back. We're going to get practical now. So we talked about a lot of the reasons behind why our kids may or may not feel that life is fair, and that they may feel like their siblings get more, or that one of the siblings is a favorite, or even everybody else in the family is a favorite above them. Again, it's developmentally normal. What they're probably asking, though they are hardwired to compare, is, do I belong? Do my needs matter too? So let's get practical with some scripts, some things that we could say and keep in our back pocket so that when these conversations come up, we have some tools. So first is going to be that that's not fair statement. And we need to help our kids understand that they're right. It's not fair, because fair isn't equal. And we need to make sure that we're giving each of our kids an equitable access to the learning they want, or the extracurriculars, or the goals that they need for their future. And so we need to make accommodations in different ways. So say your child says, that's not fair. You can say, you're right. It's different. And pause. Don't argue with them. Don't explain immediately. Start with agreement. And then, after your pause, you can say, different doesn't always mean fair. So in that case, that's not fair. You're right. It's different doesn't always mean unfair. You can leave it at that, especially if you've done some of the work up front, or you can go on to say, different doesn't mean unfair in this particular situation, because you're able to do it independently while they are not currently able to do it independently. I need to do some scribing for them because they have dysgraphia, as we've talked about before, and dysgraphia is a learning challenge that makes it very difficult for their brain to connect with their hand and makes writing hugely challenging. You don't have dysgraphia. You can write for hours and hours and do in your own journal. So they need a different approach to writing than you do. And it's fair for me to help give those different approaches. But you can simply start with, you're right, it's different. Different doesn't always mean unfair. So there's your first script. Okay, now for the kid who is getting fewer math problems, maybe because they're more advanced and they get it quickly and they just need to prove that they've gotten it so they can move on. And so you use the strategy that we call most difficult first, and you circle 5 to 10 problems on the page that are the most difficult examples of that specific skill. And if they do that 100% correctly, they're done. Whereas the other one, needs more support and more practice time. So they have a different amount of problems to do. So maybe your kiddo asks you, why does he always get fewer problems than I do? Or why does he have to solve only 10 and I've got to solve 25? You can say simply, because he needs fewer problems to practice the same skill. His brain is wired to understand math concepts very quickly, while your brain is wired to take a little bit longer to fully understand the math concept. So giving your brain additional practice allows the skill to set deeply, while he only needs 5 to 10 problems to set that skill. And then you could go on if you want to say, hey, when you're doing your writing, yours needs very little editing. His needs more support because your brain is wired to intrinsically and instinctively know what words go where to make the best and most powerful statement. Or you can just leave it at that. He gets fewer problems because he needs fewer problems to practice the same skill and understand it to mastery. Done. Maybe your child says something like, she's getting special treatment, or that's special treatment. You can simply say, actually, it's not special treatment. It's support. It's accommodations. It's meeting her where she is so that she can move forward. Accommodating a need is not special treatment. It's fair treatment. Or maybe your child says, I want to do what he gets to do. You could start with curiosity. Tell me what you're hoping for. This shifts the conversation from comparison to need. So maybe he doesn't actually want what he has. He just is hoping for more free time. And so maybe it's, I want to be able to jump on the trampoline every half an hour too. You could say, okay, we could take a brain break for you every half an hour as well. But you need to understand that once you've taken that brain break, you come back in when the timer goes off and you immediately start back in on the work that you left unfinished so you can get through the work that you're expected to do. It might just be a bid for connection, and that's okay. So start with curiosity, ask them what they're hoping for, and see if you can accommodate the want within the other child's need so that the child who is wanting isn't affecting negatively their own success, but can still feel included and like their needs matter too. Maybe your kiddo says, nobody helps me. You could say, oh, it sounds like you need support. What can I help you with? Again, approaching it with curiosity. Sure, it could feel like, and I'm sure it has numerous times throughout all of my children's lives, that I'm sitting down focusing on one child at that specific moment, and other kids are like, you don't help me as much as you help him, or you don't help me as much as you help her. If I approach that with curiosity and say, wow, it sounds like you need some support too. What can I do to help you? Now you're not being defensive. You're not giving a lecture. You're defaulting to connection, which is likely all that child needs. And so you're moving from a place of conflict to a place of connection, which benefits not only your child, but it benefits you too, and builds a strong parent-child relationship, as well as helps to facilitate the sibling relationships too, so that they grow closer together while you're growing with your children. So those scripts are great. They're well and good. And I will have them spelled out in the show notes for this episode. So if you go to raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast, you can find this podcast episode in there. You can either search for Sibling siblings or challenges or fairness, equality, whatever. But it's going to be, as of the recording of this, the top podcast in the list. But if you go into the show notes, there is a narrative version of the topics and the conversation that we had here, as well as these 5 scripts, starter scripts will be written out so you can screenshot them or you can print them so you have them to practice and see how you can use them in your own home. But now that we have the scripts, like how do we stop being a courtroom, being asked to judge or rule over every little disagreement or every little conflict? A lot of times as parents, we become accidentally family judges. We are vetting all of the different conflicts that are occurring, and we're trying to play peacemaker and mediator with our kids and sometimes even with our spouses. So every conflict becomes evidence or full of witnesses or verdicts or rulings, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And it's only one more exhausting thing on top of all of the other exhausting things that go along with homeschooling and parenting neurodivergent kids. So instead of determining who is right, let's ask ourselves and our kids what happened. And then maybe ask ourselves, what does each kid need? And what can we do next? So we want to be problem solvers, and we want to encourage our kids to be problem solvers with us, and not prosecutors and not judges and not defendants. We want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, trying to get to the most equitable understanding and distribution of accommodations and meeting of needs. So we want to be problem solvers. So let's encourage our kids to be problem solvers. Hey, I get that you don't think that you're getting as much attention as she is. What can I do to help you feel like you're getting some of those connections and that your needs are being met? Because I want to make sure that you're feeling seen, heard, and loved and safe as well. So let's get to a problem solving perspective versus a judgment perspective. And let's create a family culture around differences. I've talked about this on the podcast and in person before, but building the culture in your family around the idea that everybody has different needs, and it would be a really boring family, neighborhood, community, world if everybody had the same needs and same skills and same weaknesses. This is where long-term change happens. When we talk openly about differences, we are able now to normalize accommodations, support, strengths, challenges, weaknesses, and we can say things like, in our family, everyone gets what helps them, or we don't all need the same things, or different people need different supports. The goal isn't equal treatment. The goal is mutual respect and meeting one another's needs. This is where a big sister learns to comfort a younger sister who has generalized anxiety disorder when we're at a family gathering and the younger sister is getting overwhelmed with all of the noise and people in a given situation and can't find me. Big sister can step in and start the calming process while little brother goes to look for mom to then take over and offer support. There's no judgment in that situation. There's no, why does mom always come to the rescue of this kid? There is mutual respect, mutual understanding, and an understanding that this particular child, my sister, needs support and accommodations right now. So I'm going to support her until my mom can come and continue supporting. And then maybe it means big brother is feeling disconnected and so much of his life is changing right now. And so he wants to revisit childhood nostalgia and have a Nerf battle in the backyard, and everybody joins in because it's a fun idea, but also because it builds connection between them. So different people need different supports, and we need different things at different times. And we want our goal to be mutual respect. From this, our kids learn so many different things. When we handle sibling fairness well, children learn empathy, they learn flexibility, they learn perspective taking, they learn self-advocacy, and they learn problem-solving skills. They learn ultimately that someone else's support doesn't take away from theirs, that they are just as worthy of supports, but their supports are not necessarily going to look the same as somebody else's supports. And so they get that fair doesn't mean equal, and that everybody's entitled to support, but it's going to look different from everybody. And none of that takes away from them, who they are and what they need. That's a powerful lesson, and one that is hard won through consistency, connection, and open conversations about needs and differences within our home and our family culture. So as we're wrapping up this episode, I want you to think about, if your children compare constantly, or if that sibling conflict feels endless, or you're tired of hearing that's not fair, that it's normal. It's absolutely normal. It's developmentally normal, and it happens as far as human nature goes, right? So take a deep breath, recognize that it's normal, and that you can get through it very simply through choosing not to be the judge, and instead being a collaborative problem solver with your kids while building a culture that's open to differences and different accommodations. And I want you to remember that you're not failing. You're raising children with different brains, different needs, different strengths, and different challenges. There's going to be friction. There's friction in every sibling relationship, in every spousal relationship, in every parent-to-child relationship, in every friend-to-friend relationship, and so on and so forth. Conflict happens. And so the friction's going to be there, and that's okay. The goal isn't to eliminate the conflict. The goal is to help children learn that fairness isn't the same as sameness. Needs can coexist, and families can support everyone without treating anyone identically. And here's the thing, those lessons serve them long after they leave our home and our homeschool. It helps them become adults who are empathetic, resilient, flexible, and problem solvers who can meet any type of person in this world and find ways to see the good in them and get along and recognize what is fair in a given situation. And that's an amazing, incredible, beautiful thing. If you want more resources related to this topic, go over to the show notes that I mentioned before, raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast. You'll find links to our sponsor, CTC Math, so you can check them out there. You'll also find links to previous resources that we've shared about sibling relationships, about conflict, about connection, and other things related specifically to fair and equal and making different kinds of accommodations within your homeschool. You'll also find a link to learn more about the Learners Lab. The Learners Lab is an online community full of resources for families just like you. There are live classes and interactions and meetups and clubs for kids of all ages, from little to teen, little with support, but all the way through the teen years, as well as Q&A calls for parents, master classes, guest speakers, and other resources that will help you in your quest to build the strongest, most equitable, and accommodating homeschool possible, and to help you thrive. So I hope to see you in there. Check it out. Let me know if you need any more support, and I will see you next week. Same time, same place, with another great episode. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.